Hello and welcome to another episode of the Military History Club's Great Battle in 10 Minutes feature. Today I'm talking about the Battle of Salamanca that was fought on the 22nd of July 1812 in central Spain between the Earl of Wellington's Anglo-Portuguese army and a French army under Marshal Auguste Marmont. It ended in a decisive British victory, one of the finest of Wellington's career. In April 1812, following the capture of the fortress of Badajoz, Wellington had taken the bulk of his army north to expel Marmont's French army from Portugal. When Marmont withdrew to Salamanca, Wellington followed with the intention of bringing him to battle. The French had 230,000 troops in Spain, but they were divided between 5 armies and most had their hands full with guerrillas and Spanish regulars. This and the knowledge that all available French reinforcements were being sent east for Napoleon's imminent invasion of Russia gave Wellington the confidence to seek a general engagement. He pursued Marmont as far as the Douro River, 50 miles to the northeast of Salamanca. But on hearing that Marmont had been reinforced to 50,000 men, Wellington withdrew his army of 52,000 men back to Salamanca. Marmont followed, and so began a week of shadowboxing as the French sought to cut his line of retreat to Portugal. Marmont was certainly not risk an action unless he should have an advantage, Wellington told Sir Thomas Graham on the 21st of July, and I shall certainly not risk one unless I have an advantage, and matters therefore do not appear to be brought to that criterion very soon. Wellington did, however, have one ace up his sleeve. His assistant quartermaster general, Major George Scoville, had recently cracked the French code, known as the Great Paris Cipher, which meant that the British could read captured enemy correspondence. One message in particular, found hidden in a riding crop, contained vital information from King Joseph, Napoleon's brother, to Marshal Marmont. Written on the 9th of July, intercepted a week later, and decoded by the 20th, it made clear that Joseph's army of the centre was marching to unite with Marmont, and that if Wellington was to have any hope of beating the latter's army of Portugal, he had to give battle before the 24th of July at the latest. On the 21st of July, therefore, Wellington took up a strong position on the San Cristobal Ridge to the north of Salamanca. But Marmont refused to take the bait, and, with time running out, Wellington got very lucky. At midday on the 22nd of July, as the two armies were marching parallel to each other across a plain 5 miles southeast of Salamanca, Wellington ordered his divisions to halt and face the French. Instead of responding in kind, Marmont's men continued their march in division-sized blocks to the west. Wellington was munching on a chicken leg when he spotted this cardinal error through his telescope. "By God," he exclaimed, "that will do." Tossing aside the half-eaten chicken leg, he spurred up a nearby rise to get a better view. The sight that greeted him was beyond belief. Not only were the French trudging onwards, but a dangerous gap had opened between their leading divisions and their centre. "Mon cher Alava," exclaimed Wellington to his Spanish liaison officer, "Marmont est perdu." Wasting no time, he galloped ahead to find his leading division, the 3rd, now under the command of his brother-in-law, Sir Edward Pakenham. "Ned, do you see those fellows on the hill?" he asked, pointing to the foremost French column. "Throw your division into column, have at them, and drive them to the devil." "I will, my lord," said Pakenham, visibly moved, "if you will give me your hand." The pair shook hands, and while Pakenham put his men into motion, Wellington rode back the way he had come to launch his remaining divisions in a succession of attacks from west to east against the flank of the strung-out French army. The first blow was struck by the leading battalions of the 3rd Division and a brigade of Portuguese cavalry, nearly 6,000 veterans in all, against the unsuspecting head and flank of Marmont's advance guard under General Thomier. "The crash was magnificent," wrote Pakenham, having witnessed Wallace's brigade of the 45th, 74th and 88th Foot destroy half of Thomier's formation with musketry fire and a bayonet charge. With Thomier killed, his surviving men fled east towards Mokoon's division, pursued by cavalry and infantry. Mokoon's division was under threat not only from Pakenham's men, but also General Lee's 5th Division and a brigade of British heavy cavalry under Major General John Le Marchand. Lee's infantry charged Mokoon's men, driving them through a village and over a ridge. As soon as we got to the top, wrote a soldier of the 38th Regiment of Foot, the French were in square not more than 200 yards from us. Spotting the heavy cavalry of Le Marchand's brigade to his left, Mokoon had ordered his infantry units to form hollow squares. They now had to contend with Lee's infantry to their front and Le Marchand's horsemen, who had torn through the remnants of Thomier's division to their flank and rear. William Bragg of the 3rd Dragoons recalled, "Our brigade literally rode over the regiments in their front and dashed through the wood at a gallop, the infantry cheering us in all directions. We quickly came up with the French columns and charged their rear. Hundreds threw down their arms, their cavalry ran away, and most of the artillery jumped upon their horses and followed their cavalry. One or two charges mixed up the whole brigade, it being impossible to see for the dust and smoke." Having watched Le Marchand's glorious charge, Wellington turned to his cavalry commander, Sir Stapleton Cotton, and exclaimed, "By God, Cotton, I never saw anything so beautiful in my life. The day is yours." Wellington had every reason to assume the battle was over. In just 40 minutes, he had destroyed 2 divisions and part of a 3rd, Brenier's. But not everything was going his way. Le Marchand was shot and killed as he led his horsemen against Mokoon's squares. An attack by a Portuguese brigade on a strong position in the centre of the French line was beaten off with heavy losses. And, though Marmont himself was disabled at the start of the action by a shell, as was his deputy Bonnet, their successor, General Clausel, had reacted brilliantly to the destruction of the French left by launching a 2-division counterattack against the British centre, which almost succeeded. The blow fell on the 2 British brigades of General Cole's 4th Division, badly under strength since Badajoz, who had just driven part of Clausel's original division off the ridge, a fight in which Cole had been wounded. John Burgoyne, son of the defeated general at Saratoga, and a member of Cole's staff, recorded the calm and precision of the French counterattack. The French regiment came up the hill with a brisk and regular step, and their drums beating the pas de charge. Our men fired wildly, and when the French were close upon them, they wavered and gave way. The officers all advanced in a line in front, waving their swords and cheering their men to come on, but the confusion became a panic, and there was a regular sauve-qui-peut down the hill. Fortunately, Wellington had prepared for just such an eventuality by supporting the 5th and 4th Divisions with the 7th and 6th respectively. The men of Clinton's 6th Division, therefore, were on hand to plug the gap in the British line, until, as evening drew on, they were ordered forward to attack part of the French rearguard under General Ferré. In danger of being surrounded, Ferré's men fell back to a wood on the eastern edge of the battlefield, where they fought off one attack by Portuguese troops and looked like they might do the same to a second by British troops when, according to Captain Lemonnier de la Fosse of the 31st Regiment, our left wing ceased fire and broke and ran. He added, "The 70th line had been enveloped by cavalry and swept away, the 26th and 47th in its flight. Yet the 31st Léger, light regiment, for all that it mustered only 2 battalions, was now all on its own, stood firm and checked the enemy. Only when the sun had finally set did our gallant commander evacuate the position." This gallant rearguard action by Ferré's division, during which their commander was cut in 2 by a round shot, helped Clausel to withdraw the shattered remnants of the French army to the southeast. They might have been stopped at Alba de Tormes, but the Spanish commander had withdrawn the garrison, contrary to Wellington's orders, and the French were able to cross the bridge unimpeded. "If I had known there was no garrison at Alba," commented Wellington, "I should have marched there and probably had the whole." The fall of darkness, moreover, prevented any effective pursuit, and Wellington had to be content with a decisive victory, but not an annihilation. The French had lost 14,000 men, the Anglo-Portuguese 4,700, or slightly less than 10% of all the Allied troops present that day. In the opinion of the French division commander Maximilien Foy, the battle had raised Wellington's reputation almost to the level of Marlborough. Foy added, "Hitherto we had been aware of his prudence his eye for choosing a position, and his skill in utilizing it. At Salamanca, he has shown himself a great and able master of maneuvers. It was a battle in the style of Frederick the Great. Though not anticipating a battle, Wellington took full advantage of his opponent's error to destroy a marginally superior force, delivering most of his key orders in person and moving across the battlefield without thought for his own safety. It was one of his finest victories.